somewhere in the tropical forests of Southeast Asia, for close to 2 million years, there lived an animal larger than anything that has ever walked on two legs beside it. Larger than a gorilla. Larger than the largest orangutan that has ever been measured. An animal that stood, by some estimates, nearly 3 meters tall and weighed as much as 3 grown men combined. And here is the detail that should genuinely unsettle you: we have never found its skeleton. Not one bone of its body has ever been recovered. Everything we know about the largest ape that has ever existed, its size, its diet, its place on the family tree, its entire physical reality, has been reconstructed from teeth. Isolated teeth and a handful of broken jaws. That is the entirety of the evidence for an animal this size having ever lived at all. Its name is Gigantopithecus. And the story of how we found it, what it was, and what may have ended it is one of the strangest and most quietly disturbing chapters in the story of what came before us. The forests Gigantopithecus inhabited would have been dense, humid, and almost completely enclosed, a canopy stretching unbroken for hundreds of miles, cutting off most direct sunlight from the forest floor below. In this world, the animal moved much as a modern gorilla does, knuckle-walking through the undergrowth on all 4 limbs, its enormous forearms built to bear the weight of a body that dwarfed everything else moving through that same undergrowth. Its skull was massive and heavily built, dominated by a jaw designed for one specific and unglamorous purpose: grinding down enormous quantities of tough, fibrous plant material, bamboo stalks, leaves, stems, and roots, hour after hour, day after day, for an entire lifetime. The molars recovered from this species are larger than any other primate molar ever discovered, thick enameled and worn flat from a diet that offered little nutritional reward for an enormous amount of chewing. And this is where the story becomes genuinely strange, rather than simply impressive. Gigantopithecus was first recognized by science in 1935, not in a jungle, not in a cave, but in a drugstore in Hong Kong. The paleontologist who found it, a German-Dutch researcher who had previously worked at a museum in Munich, knew exactly where to look. Traditional apothecaries across Southeast Asia had, for generations, been selling fossilized teeth as dragon teeth, a component in traditional medicine, ground down and consumed by people with no idea they were purchasing fragments of an unknown species. Among a jar of these teeth, he found 2 molars unlike anything he had ever measured. Teeth that belonged to no known primate, living or extinct, on record anywhere in the world. He had, without meaning to, discovered the largest ape that has ever lived sitting in a jar on a wooden counter, being sold as medicine. What followed was almost as strange as the discovery itself. During the Second World War, the researcher was captured and imprisoned. Before his capture, in an act that borders on the theatrical, he entrusted his most important fossils to friends for safekeeping, and one collection of teeth was reportedly sealed inside a corked milk bottle and buried in a garden, hidden from a war that had nothing whatsoever to do with an extinct primate species, simply to keep it from being lost or confiscated. It worked. The fossils survived the war buried in soil, waiting to be dug up again by the same hands that had put them there. It would take until the 1950s for researchers to trace the origin of these teeth back to a specific set of caves in southern China, caves that had been quietly preserving sediment records stretching back millions of years. In 1956, a local villager digging in one of these caves for fertilizer turned up the first mandible ever recovered from the species, a discovery made not by a research expedition, but by accident, by someone looking for something else entirely. Between 1957 and 1963, researchers pulled 2 more partial jaws. And more than 1,000 individual teeth from that single cave, an abundance so striking that the site itself became known simply as Gigantopithecus Cave. Additional teeth have since surfaced across southern China and possibly northern Vietnam. A 4th jawbone was not reported until 2015, 80 years after the very first discovery in that Hong Kong drugstore. And still, to this day, not one bone from the rest of the body has ever been found. No spine. No limb. No pelvis. Nothing that would tell us, with certainty, exactly how this animal moved through its world. In 2019, researchers finally extracted enough preserved protein sequence from a single 1.9 million-year-old molar to answer a question that had gone unresolved for nearly a century. Gigantopithecus was a close relative of the modern orangutan, sharing a common ancestor with the Pongo lineage somewhere between 10 and 12 million years ago. Combined with isotopic analysis of the tooth enamel, researchers were also able to confirm that this animal was herbivorous, a diet of fruit, leaves, stems, and likely underground tubers, sustained across a lifetime by that same relentless, grinding jaw. But here is the question this video actually exists to ask. For close to 1.4 million years, Gigantopithecus shared its forests with something else. Homo erectus, the first of our ancient relatives to leave Africa, reaching Southeast Asia by at least 1.5 million years ago and remaining there, by the latest evidence, until just over 100,000 years ago. That is an overlap of well over 1 million years between two very different primates occupying the same dense, enclosed forests. The question is unavoidable: did they ever actually meet? The direct evidence remains stubbornly elusive. In 1996, researchers reported finding hominid teeth belonging to both Homo erectus and what they believed was Gigantopithecus in the same Vietnamese cave sediment, dated to roughly 475,000 years ago, teeth washed into the same location by the same ancient river, seemingly proving both species had been present in the same place at the same time. Later re-examination complicated the finding. The supposed Gigantopithecus teeth were reassigned to a smaller, separate extinct orangutan species entirely. A similar case of mistaken identity occurred with a jawbone found in China in 1985. To date, we have never recovered confirmed Homo erectus remains in direct physical association with confirmed Gigantopithecus remains. The two species shared a world for over 1 million years, and we have still never found undeniable proof that they ever stood in the same place at the same moment. And yet the overlap in time and territory makes an encounter almost impossible to rule out. Homo erectus was, by every measure we have, a highly capable hunter, one already documented taking down animals as large and dangerous as elephants using nothing more than stone tools and coordinated group tactics. It is not an unreasonable leap to imagine groups of these early humans occasionally attempting to bring down a Gigantopithecus individual, whether for food, for territory, or simply because it was there. What is far less certain is how often such an attempt would have succeeded, or what it would have cost the humans who tried it. Because here is what the fossil evidence suggests about how dangerous this animal actually was, even as a plant eater. Comparing the small number of known jawbones, researchers have identified a clear and consistent size difference between individuals, almost certainly evidence of extreme sexual dimorphism, with males growing dramatically larger than females and carrying proportionally larger canine teeth, in a pattern closely resembling the size gap seen in modern gorillas. This suggests a species in which large, physically dominant males face direct competition with one another, animals selected, generation after generation, for raw size and physical presence. An herbivorous diet does not mean a harmless temperament. A fully grown male Gigantopithecus, standing close to 3 meters and weighing as much as 3 men, would have been a genuinely formidable thing to provoke, regardless of what it preferred to eat. There is one more thread worth pulling on before this story ends, because it says something about us as much as it says about the animal itself. The discovery of a real, confirmed, once-living giant ape has, unsurprisingly, fueled decades of speculation linking Gigantopithecus to Bigfoot and the Yeti, the idea that a surviving population might explain modern reports of enormous, hair-covered, human-like figures glimpsed at the edges of remote forests. The science does not support this. Gigantopithecus vanished from the fossil record roughly 300,000 years ago, and a 300,000-year gap in the sedimentary evidence of every cave system in Southeast Asia is not the kind of silence a surviving population of the largest primate on Earth could plausibly maintain. But the persistence of the idea itself is worth sitting with. Across dozens of unrelated cultures, in forests on opposite sides of the planet, humans keep independently returning to the same story: something large, something almost like us, living just beyond the edge of where we are willing to go. It is tempting to wonder whether that impulse is an inherited memory of something real, not Gigantopithecus itself, long extinct before any human culture could have recorded it, but the older, deeper fact that for most of our history, we were never the only kind of primate walking through the dark of the forest. Something was always out there that looked almost like us, but wasn't quite. And some very old part of us has never fully stopped listening for it. If this story stayed with you, drop a comment and tell me what you think actually happened between these two species. And tell me where in the world you're watching this from.